Hey guys. How are you? I'm Patrick McGinnis. I own and run Breathe Coffee House. Been in ministry for a long time. That's kind of heart passion and what Breathe is. If you haven't been down there, come check us out. We're at 7th and Main. Its big vision is to be a bridge into our community. So it's my heartfelt belief that it's my heartfelt goal that to empower and encourage the hands and feet of Christ, which are you, to actually engage in our community and figure out ways to practice at it. So that's, in big picture, a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to challenge you. If you were like me, I guess, at your age, you may spend a lot of time wondering what you're supposed to be doing with your life. Anybody? Be honest. Maybe some people spend more time than others. And if you're like me, that same thing happens about every 5 years of my life. We're like, well, maybe that wasn't it. And I'm trying to put all the pieces together, and everybody's telling you what you're good at, and you have your sense of what you think you're good at, but you really want to honor God in what you're doing, but you want to also do it all in the right way, and you're not alone. I mean, you're not alone. And I'd like to tell you that feeling potentially goes away. It doesn't necessarily go away. You reassess and reassess on and on and on, and it doesn't all fit into place. And whoever told you that everything was just supposed to fit, they were lying to you. Some days it does, but for a lifetime, at least in my experience, that hasn't been the case. So that's the question. Who are you supposed to be? Should have all got a card. Did you get a card? Colored card and a pen? Everybody got it? Wave them around. Literally wave them so I see them. Here's one of my requests, one of my demands. Wave your card around. Used to preach all the time and came to this struggle even in preaching that what's the point of this if all it is me talking, that it makes no difference whatsoever if it's just me figuring out how to give a good talk. I have no interest in that whatsoever. So my challenge to you, although I can't drag it out of you, is that you're going to actually make it a point tonight to get something out of this. Even if you go home, I don't care if you on the drive home, you go, man, he was ridiculous, he was silly, and I wish he wouldn't talk. If that's what you got out of it, great. But I want you to assess something with tonight, okay? Do not walk away from this. You have your own ability to grab something, okay? And I know that even if I mess it up, God can still do something in your heart. So listen tonight for whatever that thing is. And anytime you're in a church, before you sit there and critique it all up one side and down the other, listen for what God's doing in the middle of that, because he can use negative spots to actually teach you a whole lot of stuff. So if that's your situation tonight, I encourage you there as well. Okay, with that card, I need you to write a few things on there. This is going to be intense in a hurry. I normally would build you up and do a little bit of icebreakers before then. But again, I don't like wasting my time. I don't like wasting yours. I'm going to assume we're all actually serious about why we're sitting here tonight, okay? So first off, I want you to write on there an event in your past. I know there should be a lot of them. So just choose one event in your past that shaped you, that helped shape who you are today. An event that you can point to that you go, I'm different because of that. Or I long to be because of that. Or because of that person, I'm different. An event that shaped you. Next, I want you to write 3 people who made a difference in your life. 3 people who influenced you or made a difference in your life. 3 people. If you don't have a card, we can bring you a card. If you need a card, raise your hand. Does anybody need a card yet? 3 people who made a difference in your life. And now, after that, I know maybe getting ahead of myself, but if you're not done with that, keep working. Finally, I want you to write down a trait or a habit or something that you would like to develop in yourself. Something you wish you could do better, or something that you don't have that you wish you would do, or something maybe you do and you want to grow in it. That could be exercise. That can be, you don't have to play Jesus games. You don't have to put down Bible reading or anything. But if that's something you want to do, put it down. Something you want to be able to say you can do. You do. And now I want 3 of these. Who do you want to be? What do you want said by people who know you? What do you want to be known for? And I'll make it a little simpler if you can't answer it in that manner. Fill in this blank. I am the kind of man who blank. I am the kind of woman who fill in the blank. Who do you want to be? Three things. I want to clarify something, and then I want to pray before I get started a little bit further after this. If you've heard any of my other talks, I talked about a tension between the earth and heaven, and a tension between all things that we do on earth, and I truly believe that. But when I'm asking this, I don't want you to get into a mindset or me believing that we have a capacity or that it's up to us. I do believe our purpose is rooted in something bigger than us. But I also think that if you go through and look real close, whenever Jesus encounters people, he asks them to turn to him, to reach for him, to stand up. He does ask you to do something. He doesn't just zap you. He has people lowered through the roof. He asks the people who are lame to stand up. He has blind people. He does something. You're expected to move. Faith involves you taking the step, and then God's there. So I just want to clarify that. I'm not doing a self-help planning tonight, okay? Now, I want you to take that card when you got those things on there, and I want you to fold it as many times as it would take so that it will fit in whatever you keep your money in. Fold it up, and then I want you to put it, well, or at least know where it would go so that it could fit to where you keep your valuables. Okay? If it'll fit the way it is, that's good. Maybe you got a large wallet. Okay. So, I don't know about you guys, but for one, when it got sunny here the last couple of days, I realized, man, I've been gloomy. And Taylor, you and I were just talking about that. It's like, wow, it's so nice to see the sun. It's like I didn't realize I was depressed, but I was depressed. But then I also realized I was depressed because, boy, it's hard to look at the world, isn't it? And that responsibility and that purpose thing, man, I struggle with it because it's like, should I be watching this news? Because I feel like I should, so I know what's going on and I can do something about it. But man, I can't hardly get through a newscast without wanting to throw something through the TV or just cry. And yet that's the world, right? I mean, it's not like we can just put blinders on and we can cover it up and it's gone. It's still there. No matter what I do, it's still there. And then what do you know? Even when you think you kind of got blinders on at a big level, you have people walk in front of you that got the same issues, that are dealing with the same stuff. You're hearing the same thing no matter where you go. This isn't a world problem. It's real clear it's something else is going on. So here's my big, bad, amazing thesis. You can write this down, but you don't need to write it down because it's not very complicated. It goes like this. People are hurting. Yes? The only healing I've ever found, real healing, is through Jesus. If we're followers of Jesus, and we are Jesus' hands and his feet, and Jesus told us to go and make disciples, then our purpose is found in reaching out and sharing the love of Christ to those that are hurting. Sound familiar? That's my big thesis for tonight. Okay, so if you forget everything else I say, you already got it. You can go home. But what I realize is that you all know people who are hurting. Yes? And you may be those people who are hurting. And funny, everybody does. I've had multiple conversations with my son and others that isn't it amazing that we act shocked when things don't turn out? Please tell me somebody you know in your life where everything went exactly the way they hoped it would. Can you name one? So why is it we're so shocked when things don't work? Why is it we can't remember that truth? That's a truth. It's a universal truth. It's not going to work. Things are not going to work. It's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because the world is wrong, and you're in it. I look around and I see, and you've heard me talk about mental health and other things around here, and you see more and more people, and it's getting more and more defined. And originally, and it probably is a good thing that we have more definition of what that is. But then I also realized, what am I talking about? People have had problems, fears and anxiety and depression and unsure and don't know their purpose and don't know where they fit and lonely and don't know what's going on and what is this whole thing about and why am I on this earth and how come I can't have what that person has and how come I should be better and I'm not and how come I keep falling in that same hole? Are those not the same stories since the dawn of man? So people have mental health problems. People feel lonely. People feel disconnected. People are searching for a purpose. So how are you supposed to figure out your purpose? And when you find it, if you're like me, or you're probably going through a degree program at Fort Hays, there's this thing that you think is your earthly purpose and you maybe figured out all your skills. And is that the same as your heavenly purpose or an eternal purpose? Is it supposed to match up or is it not? How does it all work? We have gone through a bunch of statistics and different things down at the coffee house and trying to build programs like Can We Just Talk to actually get people engaged with other humans. And part of that is that the statistics for mental health keep going up, especially for your age group. But people have always struggled to know their place. People have always wanted to know meaning. They've always wanted to know that they matter. They've always wanted to know if they can make an impact. They've wanted someone to be there when they're in trouble. They want someone to hear them. These longings of the heart aren't new. They are the roots of every mental health problem. And we've made a word for mental health, but in the end, they all come back to the same thing. People want to belong. They want to know that somebody cares. They want to know that they have value. They want to know that somebody would be willing to sacrifice for them if push came to shove. 2/3 of adults during the pandemic say they're experiencing social isolation. That's 66%. 66% as well said their anxiety levels have increased during the pandemic. The people who have ran into those 66%, which by the way, 2/3 of this group, the majority of them will not seek any help. Only 11% will actually go and see somebody for help. Over 50% said they wouldn't even know who to go to and have turned to no one, not even a friend. Since the pandemic began, adults in general have mostly, when they rank out their emotions, felt negative emotions. Increased frustration, stress, anxiety, isolation, tiredness, and sadness. There was a survey done on the impact of loneliness in the U.S., and it finds that young people are of the highest rate or rate themselves higher in loneliness levels than do people over age 70, who are typically living alone. And yet people your age have a higher rating of loneliness. 26% of the population suffer from a mental health diagnosis. I think I mentioned this the last time I was here, but in order to have a mental health diagnosis, at a minimum, you have to suffer for it for at least 6 months, depending on the one. Most of them are a year. So you could have actually gone into a depression at the start of the pandemic and gone through it till now, and it still wouldn't meet a diagnosis designation, but that doesn't mean you're not suffering from depression. But yet 26% with a diagnosis. 19% suffer from anxiety. What's anxiety? We've got a good clinical word for that. What's another word for anxiety? Anybody? Fear. Fear. Anybody suffer from fear? Anybody scared these days? I can relate to all that. Can you? Are those foreign numbers to you? Or can you relate to those? Are you seeing those in your life? Are those just numbers, or are they real to you? I think we're all scared. I think we're not sure what we're supposed to do next. I think we're all afraid that someone's going to find out that we don't really know what we're talking about, or we don't know what we're doing, or we're faking it. We don't know where to go, and we don't know how to get there. So here's an admission. Make fun of me as you will, but I'm a sucker for a good musical. And I've been on a kick here for a bit, and a song that's just really spoke to me, and I related to. I've learned to slam on the brake before I even turn the key, before I make the mistake, before I lead with the worst of me. Give them no reason to stare, no slipping up if you slip away. So I've got nothing to share. No, I've got nothing to say. Step out of the sun if you keep getting burned. Step out of the sun because you've learned. On the outside, always looking in. Will I ever be more than I've always been? Because I'm tapping on the glass. I'm waving through a window. I try to speak, but nobody can hear. So I wait around for an answer to appear. While I'm watching people pass, I'm waving through a window. Can anybody see? Is anybody waving back at me? Step out of the sun if you keep getting burned. Step out of the sun because you've learned. On the outside, always looking in. Will I ever be more than I've always been? Because I'm tapping on the glass, waving through a window. I try to speak, but nobody can hear. So I wait around for an answer to appear. While I'm watching people pass, waving through a window. Can anybody see? Is anybody waving back at me? When you're falling in a forest and there's no one around, do you ever really crash or even make a sound? When you're falling in a forest and there's no one around, do you ever really crash or even make a sound? Do I even make a sound? Did I even make a sound? It's like I never made a sound. Will I ever make a sound? We sit on our phones and our computers, and we tap on the glass, and we make believe what the meaning of the response is, and we wonder if anybody actually cares. We create an image from ourselves through college, through other means, and we wave through the window when we present ourselves, and we hope that what you're getting back is actually something. I went through the, it's going to sound more impressive than it is. I went through the Bible. I didn't actually go through the entire Bible. But I have, but I didn't for this. But I looked through, you don't have to look very long, by the way, to find people in a world of hurt. You don't have to open almost any chapter in the Bible and you're going to find somebody in there is stuck. Somebody in there is hurting. Somebody in there who's got issues. You're going to find them from every different style of people, from the rich to the poor, male, female, it doesn't matter. There's very much a commonality. When it's a human being, they got an issue, right? They're struggling with something. So I'm going to take just a few just to highlight real fast. Psalm 25 is David talking. And I'm going to go fast on these because I just want you to hear his overall, the way he's talking. In you, Lord, my God, I put my trust. I trust in you. Do not let me be put to shame, nor let my enemies triumph over me. No one who hopes in you will ever be put to shame, but shame will come on those who are treacherous without cause. Show me your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God, my Savior, and my hope in you all day long. Remember, Lord, your great mercy and love, for they are from of old. Do not remember the sins of my youth and my rebellious ways. According to your love, remember me, for you, Lord, are good. Pause fast right in there. What's he saying here? He talks about shame. He talks about his past. He says he knows where the path of the Lord is. He says, remember your mercy. What's he talking about? Why would God need mercy? He's talking about himself and all that he's done wrong. And he's pleading with God to notice that he's not what he sometimes feels he is. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore, he instructs sinners in his ways. He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. All the ways of the Lord are loving and faithful towards those who keep the demands of his covenant. For the sake of your name, Lord, forgive my iniquity, though it is great. Who then are those who fear the Lord? He will instruct them in the ways they should choose. They will spend their days in prosperity, and their descendants will inherit the land. The Lord confides in those who fear him. He makes his covenant known to them. My eyes are ever on the Lord, for he will release my feet from the snare. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. Now, when he's writing most of these, he's in a cave, okay? So now, this may be King David down the road, but realize he's lonely and afflicted because he was literally alone and afflicted. Relieve the troubles of my heart and free me from my anguish. Look on my affliction and my distress and take away all my sins. See how numerous are my enemies and how fiercely they hate me. Guard my life and rescue me. Do not let me be put to shame, for I take refuge in you. May integrity and uprightness protect me, because my hope, Lord, is in you. Deliver Israel, O God, from all their troubles. Is this not a man crying out in anguish for fear that all that he's done will mean nothing? That everybody who he doesn't think deserve anything are going to beat him? That everybody who doesn't deserve it is going to get more credit, that he will die alone. His son is Solomon. Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes. Familiar with that one? That is an uplifting book. Starts off, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. He proceeds to go through, he says he tries out everything. He tries out everything in the world. All the stuff that, by the way, the world will tell you should try in college. Solomon did that. He tried wealth, he tries women, he tries everything you can imagine. And what is his conclusion on every one of those? Meaningless. Meaningless. None of these things gave him happiness. None of these things gave him fulfillment. None of those things that he thought. Now again, it just blows my mind sometimes. We as humans, you can look back at these things and have wise human beings. They'll tell you, there's more to it. And yet we buy off, don't we? I'm going to do these 12 things. I'm going to get the house. I'm going to get the lawn. I'm going to get the car. I'm going to get the job. I'm going to get the retirement. And it's going to work. Maybe it doesn't matter that I've all these other wise people who told me repeatedly it doesn't work. It's going to work for me. The lie just keeps working. We give Satan way too much credit. He only needs about 2 lies. They work on everybody all the time. So there's Solomon, who was the king. I took you David, who was in a cave when he wrote those. So we got the poorest of poor on the run, almost, going to be killed at any moment. You got his son, who was the king, who was the richest man ever. So both of those two were scared out of their minds. Okay, so we got the rich and the poor. Now let's move to John. Now, if you don't know anything about this is John 14. If you don't know anything about the disciples, they were fishermen. If you don't know anything about that culture, those were not highly sought after people. Fishermen basically couldn't do anything else. The reason why they did not have a rabbi to follow when Jesus called them was because they basically would have flunked out of school before it got to the point of being assigned to a rabbi. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the way it works. They teach everybody the books, and when you got the highest, the best of the best, a rabbi would ask them to follow. So when Jesus came down and said, "Follow me," they clearly weren't already hooked to a rabbi, which meant they basically flunked out, and that's why they were doing fisherman stuff. So here again, we get somebody who's really extremely poor. All these guys basically came from that same type of person, right? In 14, it says this: "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, but believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, so that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going." Say that with me. You know the way to the place to where I'm going. Say it one more time. You know the way to the place to where I'm going. Who's he talking to? His disciples. Are you a follower of Christ? You know the way to the place where he's going. You know the way. You know the way. You already know the way. Jesus answered when Thomas said, "Lord, we don't know where you're going. We don't know the way." Jesus said, "I am the way and the truth and the life." How come Jesus didn't stop with "I am the way"? How come Jesus added in the truth and the life? He just said you already know the way. Couldn't he just stop there? Because there's more to it. Now, your life starts and your purpose starts when you realize he is the way and the truth and the life. So every place you're looking for truth in the world, and I do it all the time, and I can go just like Solomon and build up all of my big castles. Guess what? Am I going to find the truth? I'm not. It's going to feel like the truth and not going to be the truth. Am I going to find my life? The purpose that I'm so desperate for? No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and you have seen him. It goes on in verse 12. "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I'm going to the Father." And then further on down in 23, he says, "Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them and will come to them and make our home with them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me." I'm going to simplify that down. For me anyway, I always make this big thing. Well, I got to obey all the commandments and obey. But let me simplify it down. If you trusted any of you in athletics, if you trust your coach, do you do what he asks? So love and trust in there, I believe, are one and the same. If you trust them, you do what they say. How do you get to the end if everybody does their own thing? If you trust me, you'll do what I'm asking you to do. I encourage you to read all the way through those. So you got 3 different types of people, distinctly, all of whom are saying, we don't know the way. And God says, yes, you do. Jesus says, yes, you do. So why are we like this? How come we can't seem to figure out what we're supposed to do? How come we continue to literally be able to look at one another and say, I don't know what my purpose is? Jesus came to save us, yes? Jesus told us that he came to show us the way, yes? He told us that he's the truth and that he's the life, yes? He said he'll give us a helper. And then he said, so what do you have to be afraid of? Our earthly purpose is only means to get to our eternal purpose. Never an exception. You were not created for your own glory. So there is never an exception to that rule. Your earthly purpose is means to an eternal purpose. You got to start looking at your life that way. Do you remember when Jesus was asked what the most important commandment was? Or commandments? Love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Now again, he had opportunity to say whatever he needed to say at that point, but what did he say? All of this stuff. So now after you're told what you need to do is follow his commands in order to stay in his way, what does he tell you his commands are? Love God and love other people. Love God and love other people. And then he kind of takes it for granted, the fact that he already knows you love yourself, because you think everything should turn out to your favor, and you don't even understand why there's always trouble in your life. And it ticks you off. So he knows you love yourself, because he knows you think you're the center of the universe. So if he knows that about you, he says, love other people the same way. Love other people like that. So when Jesus looks at you, and we have this fear and this whole thing of not knowing who we are, and we're waving through the window and we want kind of response, he could see all of your worst of you, correct? He's not fooled by you. He knows it. When we look around the room at other people and we decide how bad they are, or they're too bad, or they're out of my capacity to deal with, how dare you? Who are you not to be involved in another human life? That's what he created you to do. Jesus gives us cliff notes right here in the text. He tells you what your purpose is. He tells you how to make sense of the world. That he gave you the ability to do what he did, which was to love people supernaturally. Through Jesus, you have the capacity to deal with people you don't think you can deal with. At the end of Jesus' time on earth, he told us a command: go and make disciples. Remember that one too? He only has a couple commands that he makes really clear. Love God, love other people, go and make disciples. What are disciples? What are disciples? Followers. Simple. How, do you know, has anybody ever followed you who didn't actually know your name? Who didn't actually trust you? I challenge you, try this week. See whether you can get somebody to follow you by being go out on the street and try to get someone to follow you somewhere who doesn't know you. Good luck. It doesn't work. But we have something weird in our heads as well that makes us believe that, well, if I just tell people about Jesus, that's making a disciple. No, it's not. He's saying make followers. Well, how do you know if anybody's going to follow at all unless you actually know that person? Unless they know you. Unless you actually can be involved in their life. It's our purpose to love, to make a plan. To make a plan to love. I do marriage counseling all the time, and I'm always shocked by the fact that people can say, well, I'm not in love anymore. Well, love is commitment. And the reason when I feel love, it's because I realize somebody's willing to sacrifice for me, or really realize that, hey, in spite of my mess that I am, they take me anyway. That's love. So if you got a person out here who's struggling from you name it, and you aren't willing to go to the point of saying, well, I love you anyway, Jesus talks about that too. He says, what is it for somebody to love somebody who loves them back? I want you to love your enemies. And in our culture, by the way, we haven't got a lot of enemies. We got people who we think are too weird to deal with. Those are most of our enemies. The people that we go, I'm not qualified. Send them to a counselor. Through Christ, we are the solution. We are designed, enabled, empowered. Can you go ahead and show that video? The numbers I give you are only numbers if you don't realize that you are walking past people who have no hope. That you are walking past people every day who don't know where to turn. You are walking past dorm rooms that are always closed because they don't know who to talk to. You are walking past people in your classrooms who don't know which way to turn. Jesus did an amazing thing. He not only saved us, but he said, now you go and do the same. He calls himself Father. And now I have 3 kids and I got grandkids, and I know that if they were hurting, I would send armies to save them. Jesus did that. He said, wake up. You're my hands and my feet. I need you to be engaged in this hurting world. He knew it was a hurting world, and you're the plan. You're the plan. You want to know where your purpose is? It's sitting around you. It's down the block. It's in your hometown. It's in the thing you don't want to deal with. It's there because that's the stuff Jesus came to deal with. And then he said, now you do it. I will send you my Spirit. Now you do it. First, you have to commit. That's called faith. And when you're willing to take the walk to wherever you got to go, he'll be there. If you got your little card, I got one last thing I want you to write on there. Pull that card back out. I know I made you fold it up, but I want to make sure you could fit it in your wallet before you left. So really, don't have to write much. Now in the dark, good luck. I want you to write one person. One person that you regularly don't connect with that your heart's telling you you should. That you're willing to commit to go connect with. Maybe it's a person you used to. You haven't talked to them for a long time. I want one person on that card. What person did God give you a purpose for? Commit first, and peace will follow. It isn't complicated, but it isn't easy. Lord, you taught us that you're willing to go back for one, that you'd leave 99 to go back for one. Help us, Lord, to have the same heart. Help us to look, Lord, for the hurting instead of the stable. Give us the heart, Lord, to go back for the one. In Jesus' name, amen.